The pursuit of God is a task full of mystery and mystery. True knowledge of the divine requires a personal, profound experience. As the ancient wisdom says, everything is a manifestation of the infinite mind, and the universe is essentially mental. This means that the world around us is nothing but a mental creation of infinite consciousness. The universe exists only in the mind of the Supreme, and there is nothing beyond that mind. The sacred texts emphasize that the true nature of God is incomprehensible to the human mind. So scientific attempts to unravel the mystery of the divine may be futile. Contrary to popular perceptions of God as a being with human features sitting on a throne, God is an all-encompassing force, His essence present within each of us. However, the powerful influence of the ego obscures this connection, hiding our awareness of the divine from us. The ego creates an illusion of separation between us and God. By endowing God with human qualities and personifying Him, we create an image of an external entity endowed with ego, capable of judgment and harm. By examining various cultural mythologies and religious beliefs, one can see that every representation of God reflects egoistic traits, which leads one to wonder about the nature of our perceptions and the extent to which our own limitations affect our understanding of the divine. This perspective has its origins in the human ego's desire to penetrate the inscrutable nature of the divine. Joseph Murphy aptly observes that God is not a person, an entity, an object, a power, or even a mere idea. God is an experience. In these words lies the deepest spiritual secret. The spiritually awakened mind realizes that knowing and understanding anything is possible only by looking from the outside. It is like observing things from afar. However, true knowledge comes only when one becomes fully immersed in the subject, becomes a part of it. Consequently, comprehension of God is possible only through a personal experience of God within oneself. Otherwise, striving for God risks turning into an endless pursuit of the ego, trying to comprehend the incomprehensible from the outside. As a result, the human being is only superficially acquainted with the manifestations of the divine, recognizing them but not penetrating into their essence, because the truth remains hidden behind the facade of everything perceived. Let us recall the wise words of Albert Einstein, who once remarked, "The laws of nature are only the thoughts of God, and man, as the last student in the workshop of nature, only gradually learns to read and understand these thoughts." These words emphasize that cognition of the divine requires not just external observation, but deep penetration into the essence of things. In this conception of the universe, all things appear as energy, and it is in this life-giving energy that the divine essence is embodied. However, human nature is often inclined to analytical dissection of these phenomena, trying to comprehend their properties through logical inferences. This tendency tends to overlook the vital link that unites all things, the fundamental truth that we all share a common nature with the objects of our cognition. The process of observation is inextricably linked to the act of creation. In other words, what one seeks through observation, one will discover. Scientific research follows this principle. Scientists seek and eventually find answers to their questions. However, these discoveries often lead to new creations as humans serve as conduits for expanding divine influence in their lives. Preconceived notions and their areas of focus shape the reality that materializes, whether on an individual or collective level. Consequently, the act of observation culminates in the creation of something fundamentally new. By being on the front lines of creation, Each person contributes to the formation of new dimensions by utilizing his or her cognitive capacity. Every moment of our lives is a canvas on which thoughts and emotions paint new realities. It is important to realize that the search for the divine does not have to be like an endless wandering through the outer world. The true path lies through inner vision, through gazing into the depths of one's own self. The revelation that awaits the seeker of God within himself is nothing less than another miracle created by the Creator. The presence of the Most High becomes tangible when the mind is quieted, when distractions lose their power. In moments of absolute concentration, when one is fully immersed in the present, God reveals himself. God's delight is reflected in human contentment, and the Creator's joy resonates with human happiness. However, a clear line must be drawn between the fleeting pleasures generated by the ego and the deep, all-consuming experience of experiencing God. To know God, one must go beyond illusory separation. Although God is always present, the ego's belief in separation can distort the encounter with Him or even nullify it. That said, one should not demonize the ego. On the contrary, the ego is the force that drives our creative impulses and opens us to limitless possibilities. Without the ego, the sphere of creation and its inexhaustible potential would remain unused. In a world of harmony and full self-awareness, the urge to create may be somewhat diminished. However, our unique individuality, while enriching the exciting adventure of life, inevitably adds challenges and obstacles. The challenge is not to eradicate the ego, but to nurture it carefully, accepting its role but without completely merging with it. It is important to realize that the ego is only a part of our personality, not our whole self. Once this distinction is made, the possibility opens up for a deeper appreciation of one's ego, realizing that it belongs to us but is not us. When one learns to distinguish between the ego and one's true self, one is on the path of spiritual enlightenment, which leads to a deeper understanding of the divine presence in one's life. It should be emphasized that the goal is not instantaneous detachment from the material world and merging with the divine. Such a radical upheaval is not the essence of the process. It is not a matter of disliking one's current existence and fleeing to a secluded hermitage, but rather of recognizing God and conforming one's actions to His designs for one's own life. The quest to comprehend God originates in the depths of the true self, beyond the reach of the ego. The study of the many writings on the divine leads to an unexpected result. Instead of gaining clarity, there is a growing sense of bewilderment. However, one feeling remains unchanged. All known images of God bear the clear mark of egoistic perception. Such descriptions often sound overly human, as if the ego itself is trying to comprehend an idea that is inherently beyond its capacity. This understanding comes when the ego tries to rationalize the inscrutable nature of God, using the familiar framework of its own limitations. It is impossible to know God by remaining an outside observer. This endeavor may therefore seem elusive, but it also has its own special allure. Neville Goddard offers several perspectives on the search for God, urging us to seek the divine through personal inner experience rather than through external observation. The process of comprehending truth is revealed through a deep union with the object of aspiration. Imagine pictures and situations where the divine presence is felt, and allow yourself to feel the range of emotions involved. It is important to anchor the idea of God's omnipresence in the depths of the subconscious mind, so that it can manifest in the surrounding reality. The journey of seeking the divine origin is a unique and enriching adventure filled with personal discovery and joy. Accepting and interacting with the concept of ego is a conscious choice dictated by the pursuit of pleasure. The sense of God's presence is already inherent in us, but that does not take away from the fascination of creating it. The purpose of this reflection is not to discourage the spiritual quest as such, but rather to warn against seeking fulfillment from external sources. Inner wholeness and self-sufficiency already exist within each of us. Therefore, one should seek for pleasure, driven by insatiable curiosity, immersing oneself in the experience of the divine presence, periodically quieting the mind and staying in the present moment. One can immerse oneself in the fascinating world of science, delve into religious doctrines, and expand the horizons of knowledge, while successfully navigating the vicissitudes of life. This allows one to experience the magic of existence and marvel at the wonders that abound on our planet. At the same time, it is essential to maintain an unwavering awareness of one's true nature and to maintain a constant connection with the divine in everyday life. Such an approach contributes to the enrichment and joy of each day lived. When the presence of the Most High is felt especially acutely and clearly. Undoubtedly, the divine is always there. One only needs to stop for a moment and listen to oneself to realize the profound truth: I am. It is in these moments of silence and self-contemplation that one discovers the understanding of one's inseparable connection with the universe and the realization of one's own significance in this infinite flow of existence.